I'm sorry that I got to like talk to you through the screens, but I'm grateful that I get a chance to chop it up with you either way.
I know. I mean, can you believe it's been like a whole year from this COVID thing? I'm like, really? Like, one of my friends put on Facebook recently that she was going to just wear pajamas for a couple months. And then here we are a whole year later still in COVID. It's crazy. So, but you know, when I see you, I'm giving you a big hug.
She's getting good use out of those pajamas, though. Like, never before have you worn pajamas this much in your life. She's getting good use out of those.
I'm sure she is. You know, I'm the person that still dresses up to come to work in my office. My kids are like, are you serious? Like, are you seriously dressed up? I was like, yeah. I even bought high heel house shoes. How crazy is that, right? I know, right?
I love it. I love it.
But I wanted to have you on because the world already knows about you. And then I want more people, everybody, to know who you are and how special you are and how powerful you are. And this is the perfect month too, right? This is a month where we get to talk about and highlight our justice system. This is a month where we get to talk about where there's some discrepancy still and some major deficits. But this is also the month where we get to talk about the different ways that we get to support folks who have been incarcerated and their families and think about how we help them when they're coming back home. You know, our new word that we're using and we want everybody to use is returning citizens, right? Because they are returning back home. So some of the other words have some negative connotations based off of old political styles. But our folks are coming back home. They're returning back home. And so we will be using the term returning citizens. But we jumped right into our conversation because it's like just me and you, right? But everybody else is probably like, what is going on here? So let me first start off. Let me retract and start off a little formally. Thanks for everybody who's with us today to do Spillin the Tea with Dr. P. And I have my good tea mug too, my Onyx tea mug. So super excited.
Water, more or less.
Oh, I got some water.
Stay hydrated, right?
Hydrated, honey. That's how we keep the skin, right? That's how we make sure we don't crack. But every month I get the opportunity to speak to somebody that is super important to me, but super powerful in the world. And today I'm so excited to have my homeboy, my brother, Marcus, to come and talk to us about his experiences with the justice system, as well as the ways that he's been able to his experiences when he returned, and his experiences with his family, and then his beautiful, beautiful business that I talk to everybody about. And so let's get into it. Marcus, introduce yourself for the folks.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. One of the things I got to shout out, I'm so grateful for you starting the show literally before everything else with language. Language matters in ensuring that, that we educate some of our listeners who wouldn't have thought to be able to rename the people that have had this like stamp that's been placed on their lives as like a felon, a previous felon, or previous prisoner, or inmate, or this, that, and the third, right? And these are words that I use for like to identify with myself, right, for years. And then as my career continued to grow and blossom, and I became I met more people. Right, it was like less about like how everyone began to educate me, but I met more people that were coming out of spaces, and I saw how demeaning it could be to continuously refer to folks that are coming out of there like, oh yeah, so former inmate so and so. Like, no one wants to be introduced as a former inmate. Like, no, not nobody. Right, so grateful for you for taking a moment to address the conversation around language. Language matters. My name is Marcus Bullock. I'm the CEO and founder of Flikshop. That's spelled Flikshop for all you Googlers. We built the technology that helps families stay connected to their incarcerated loved ones. Our mobile app is what we're most popularly known for. It allows our customers the ability to be able to take a picture, add some quick text, press send, and for 99 cents, we print that picture and text on a real tangible postcard, and we ship it to any person in any prison, anywhere in the country. Our mission is to reduce recidivism. We have a massive goal to help reduce recidivism over the next several years, and as we rethink what prison reforms needs to look like. And I'm excited to be able to build one of the technologies that allow for communications to happen between family members.
Yeah, you've worked with some big names too, though, Marcus, right? Like you started this thing. When did you start Flikshop?
So we launched Flikshop. We went live in the app stores in 2012. So it's been literally like pushing up on almost 9 years now.
Yeah. And every time I open up Facebook, I'm just scrolling and you see what people are doing, and then I get to your page and I'm like, partnered with who and was featured where? Is this Forbes I see? Wait, hold on. Was my brother doing a TED Talk? Like, what is going on? And every single time I get so excited. And then I see the kids, we live in the same community, and I go out and see the kids and see your wife walking around, and I'm like, hey, they're probably like, girl, what are you doing? So, but so talk to me a little bit about your experience. What brought you to this work?
Yeah, I mean, so, I'm very passionate about, reducing recidivism, keeping people, in another vocabulary word, right? Keeping people out of prison, people that are coming home from prison. They say that over the first 3 years of you leaving prison, over 75% of these people actually return back. And 50% of them actually go into, again, a longer incarcerated period of time. And I wanted to figure out a way to be able to contribute to that. Mostly because I was blessed to be able to have a loving mom who cared about me when I made one of the worst decisions of my life when I was a 15-year-old kid. Back when I was 15 years old in 1996, I was a sophomore in high school, so it was right before the winter break in the beginning of December. My best friend and I, who was 16 at the time, decided to go to a shopping mall parking lot in Springfield Mall in Fairfax County, Virginia. We tap on this guy's window with a firearm, demand that he gets out of the car while he's standing there in the middle of the parking lot. We jump in the car and pull off. That carjacking landed me in handcuffs the very next day with my mom and my sister on the other line, on the other end of the phone, with me complaining like, oh my gosh, they just arrested me and I don't know what to do. If I'm being honest, I was very naive. That's probably the best way to talk about how delusional I was as a 15-year-old kid walking into, this new incarcerated space, this new culture of jail and prison and other vocabulary words like arraignment and Miranda rights. Like, my lawyer asked me, was like, yo, did they read your Miranda rights? I'm like, man, I ain't robbed nobody named Miranda. It was a dude. I don't know who. Like, I was such a kid, but I had no idea what was really going on. It was crazy. I was more scared of my mom and getting in trouble getting put on punishment than I was than the police, right? Like, when they were like, yo, we're going to take you to court, I'm like, cool, as long as y'all don't call my mother. Like, I'm willing to say whatever, I'll do whatever, I'll sign whatever, as long as you don't tell my mom. Just let me break it to my mom. I'll go home. I'll write a letter to the guy and tell him how sorry I am. Like I got a 2.7. I got to keep a 3.0 because I'm a starting shooting guard at Sutton High School, right? Like, I'm in a Benjamin Banneker math club. Like, that was my life. You know what I mean? Like, trying to figure out if I was going to really get that Kenneth Cole T-shirt for my girlfriend during the Christmas break, so I can crack them, you know what I mean, coming back to school after winter break and go crush them, right? Like, that was my world. And a few months later, after not being able to get bonded, sitting in the jail cell, and trying to convince my mom that they're going to let me go every time that she would come and visit me while I was in a jail, in March of 1997, they sentenced me to 8 years in adult maximum securities.
Wow.
So now I'm like a 15-year-old kid standing in front of a judge trying to digest, right, an 8-year prison sentence, knowing I'm going to be around all adults. And because they sentenced me as in a maximum security prisons, now I'm like, I have to try to navigate this new world of being around some of the state of Virginia is like, what they would consider to be the hardest criminals that, they would label. Right now, I'm one of those new hardened criminals that's a 15-year-old kid walking in the rec yard and being put in a cell with my best friend, who, was my cell partner, later became my best friend. He had life plus 10 years, right? Wow. And so this was my new world that I had to adjust to. It was a very interesting and hard time in my life back then.
Yeah, Marcus, I think, every time I hear the story, I get so angry. And I can't even imagine how you stand with so much peace, right? Like, every time I see you, it's like that same smile that you're showing us right now and so much calm. But I get so angry. And I think the root of that anger is just how people are treated. 15. Deuce is about to be 14. And I can't even imagine. You remember me texting you a couple months ago, like, 15, Mark? Like, something just popped in my, and I was like, 15? Like, of course you're thinking about what shirt you're going to wear after the holiday break. Of course you're thinking about getting on punishment. Of course, because that's what 15-year-olds think about. You know what I mean? If you can remember, what was going on that particular day where you and your homeboy was like, we just going to go over here to the mall and we're going to do this thing? Like, what were y'all think? Was it just a risk-taking kind of thing? Was it like an adrenaline rush, or, was it something else?
The interesting thing was, like, at that time in the mid 90s, like, so I lived at that time, I was living in Walker Mill, Maryland, right? In the neighborhood I was living in, I think it was like called Walker Mill Gardens. I think it was something like that. Or like, I was living right behind Hilltop Gardens or something like that. And in that neighborhood, when I would walk out of my building door, it was a one-way in, one-way out neighborhood. So at the top of the hill where the dumpster would be, that's also where the dudes that stood at the top of the hill, and it's like 7 or 8 of them, and they were doing hand-to-hand combat and passing something off. And at the time, I didn't realize what was happening inside of my neighborhood, but I later learned that Big Mike drove a Benz, and my mother drove an Escort, and she worked for the federal government. I ain't want to be like my mother. I wanted to be like Mike. All the girls
wanted to
be, literally wanted to be like Mike, right? All the girls liked him, you know what I mean? Like, he always stayed fly, right? I went to school, and I was a good student, and I was a good student probably literally because I just played on a basketball team, and I don't know if I understood the value of being a good student at that time. I really just wanted to be able to keep a starting position, because if I kept a starting position, Suitland was known to go into the state championships. I would stay on the starting team all the way through my senior year. I'd get a Division I scholarship. I'd be able to go to Duke. I wanted to play for Duke University. Like, that was my thing. That was the goal, right? My mom always impressed upon how important it was to be able to go to college. She was going to Trinity College at the time. She was going to school at nighttime. So every evening when she was going to school, to help show my sister and I how the importance of education, I'm like, bet, Mom outside, I'm outside. So I'm going out with my boys. I'm like, yo, what y'all doing? And so I'm just hanging out with them and laughing with them and learning the jokes and learning how to slap box on the corners before I learned how to be able to get my first package from one of my friends who showed me how to cut it up in the back of his car on a Nintendo cartridge. Mm-hmm. That day completely shaped everything, because now I walked back in the house with like $200, $300 or something, right? And seemingly, like, I had never had that much money. You know what I mean? So I was like the richest person I knew, right? Yeah. And so I was addicted. I was like, oh, that's a wrap. Like, why would I not do this? This doesn't even make sense I would not do this, right? Yeah. There was a blurred line that I didn't see. And my mom, while she was going to school and working on her undergrad, I was like, yeah, I'm out. So every time she would go outside, I would go outside. And eventually I learned, I started to, learn all of the other inner workings behind this new now street life that I become a part of inadvertently, right? Sneakily. Here's the thing. I couldn't even spend the money. If my mother would have seen the stuff that I was buying, right, I would have got in trouble, right? I couldn't even spend the money. I had money. I'm like buying all my friends weed, because everybody was standing outside smoking weed. I'm like buying. I literally was like trying to buy the entire basketball team, JV and varsity team shoes. Because I was like, oh, I can buy them. Like, people were like, where are you getting this money from? Like, it was crazy. Yeah. And how young I was and immature, but just still wanted, the ambitious Marcus wanted something. Yeah. Fast forward to the days where the blurred line became even more blurry. And now it was like, oh, so-and-so coming to pick us all up in a stolen Tahoe, and we're going to go to Crystals to go to the skating rink, right?
Yeah, Crystals.
Like, oh, you know what I mean? We about to go up Crystals. We lit, right? And then it was like, somebody said that you can get a fake ID, and when Rare Essence was playing at the Legends, we can go see Essence at the Legends. Now I'm like, oh, we in a party, right? So this was my new life that I was living. The night that we committed the carjacking, it looked like any other random Wednesday night for me. It was just, that happened to be on a Saturday, and that Sunday, we got caught.
Got you. Wow. There's so much that comes out of that, right? Like, so one of the questions I was going to ask, I do a lot of work with adolescents too, and the adolescent brain is not fully functioning, right? Like, that's why they get the term adolescence, because their frontal lobe isn't fully developed. They're still working a large part on their sensory, their sensory part of their brain, and then their feelings and things like that. And it's all scientific with like the hormones and things like that, but the results are risk-taking. one of the major results of being an adolescent is this sense of invisibility, like I'm invincible, and then this risk-taking element. And everything you just described, I'm thinking about it from my mental health lens, like, yep, I can see how that happened. And you talk about your mom often, who I know she's an amazing woman. But
so grateful for my mom.
Yeah. What you said that you couldn't spend the money because your mom would have noticed, right? Was there anything after these years later and conversations that you had with your mom where she was like, dang, I noticed this, or your sister that said, dang, I noticed this, like any tiny little tidbit that maybe parents that are watching right now are like, you know, sometimes my kids are out, not always sure what they're doing, but they have this particular change. Should I be worried? Should I be thinking? Like what, anything like that she noticed?
I mean, I think in hindsight, my mother would be able to look back and be able to see with 2020, like, oh, like my mom was green too. You know what I mean? So she didn't know what weed smelled like. So when I would come home smelling like weed, she's like, you stink. You need to go get in the shower. You know what I mean? Right. So she didn't see like smoking weed every day as a teenage kid that's 14 years old, like that can't be right for your brain, right? You know? And we're not even talking about getting to decision making, right? But just how the development, you would know better than I would, but the psychological development of the brain. So I think that my mom had an opportunity just in that, right? And I think that she had other opportunities when she would see, and I talk about this often, she would see the negative things. She would hear, my mom would hear, like, oh, someone would say, I seen your son outside late last night. I remember one time somebody came to church, because we was in one of them church families too. Like, we was like in church every night. My mom was a minister, you know what I mean? Like, I would literally go to church like on Sunday. As soon as the church is over, come home, change clothes, I'm back outside on the block. But my mother is like doing whatever, cooking dinner. I'm like, I'm just going outside to go ride my bike, but I'm out on the block trying to go come up. I'm like, where my beeper at? Trying to tuck my beeper so my mother wouldn't be able to see my beeper, right? And the crazy thing of it is that she had a unique opportunity to want to, she had a unique opportunity to be able to try to feel what my desires were and see where my ambitions were lying. And I think that her inability to be able to see that as a result of like the world that she came from, the cultural world that she came from, didn't look like where I was growing up and what I was becoming, just based off my environment alone, right? Which was driving me and driving a lot of my decision makers, because the environment produced the friends produced the influence produced the decision making, right? And so because she didn't understand that, it gives me now the opportunity to be able to curb a lot of what could potentially happen as a result of just the fork in the road going the wrong direction. When I see, for example, one of my students at the Flikshop School of Business, when I'm able to have conversations with them, or my niece and nephews even, I'm able to talk to them. I'm like, yo, so I'm not even going to spend a whole bunch of time in talking about the things that you do wrong, or the things perceptively that I think that you do wrong, or the things I don't understand because culturally I just don't get it. Like the rappers, they talking about different stuff. Rappers, they was talking about getting money. Y'all not talking about getting money. Y'all talking about robbing y'all friends. I don't get it. But I'm not going to judge you there. What I am going to do is I'm going to feed forget the judgment of what I think that is going wrong. I'm going to feed all the amazingness that I think that's going right. And I think that the more energy I place on, even with my own son, right? I'm like, we can talk about the things that my son does. He's 10. He makes horrible decisions all the time, right? But what I think that I choose to spend more time with doing is helping him understand the value of the amazing decisions that he makes. And I'm like, yo, look, let's take this time to point out that your amazing level of self-awareness. I'm going to teach you a term called emotional intelligence. You have a level of EQ that blah, 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 simply because he understands that before you go in the bathroom, make sure you turn your phone off, make sure you tuck your phone, put it in the drain, like you can't be on your phone while you walk to the bathroom, the camera, blah, blah. He's able to articulate that. Just his self-awareness alone is something I like to pinpoint. And so when I have those opportunities to talk about that with my son or with my students, then I try to spend more time there, because I can see all the things that's going wrong, and trying to feed that is only telling my son, when I say don't do this, or you're always doing this, or you're big, that's telling him, keep doing that, keep doing these things. How can you leverage the natural rebellion that you're experiencing inside of you to continue to keep doing these things that I always want to highlight? And I think that was one of the things that a lot, not just my mom, but like all of the older folks in my life, that was like, don't go outside. Those people are wrong. You shouldn't hang around them. Those are not your friends. Da, da, da. All I heard was go outside, go hang around them. Those are your friends, and those are the people who know you the best, because apparently this old person I'm talking to right now don't know me, right?
Exactly.
And so I try to figure out how to be able to leverage that balance, especially when I'm dealing with my younger folks, knowing what I would have preferred to have had when I was ambitious. I wanted to play ball and I wanted to sell, something. It just happened to be the wrong product.
Yeah. That language around don't is so important. We talk to parents about that all the time. Whether we're doing like parents and workshops and platforms, or whether we have a young person that's in counseling with us at Onyx, and we're doing some psychoeducation work with their parents directly, how much that language matters. And this is a key moment for folks to think about what you say to your children, because when you say the don'ts and the do's, they don't pay attention to the negative language, the not. They pay attention to what's on the other end of that, right? And so, and it sounds counterproductive. We're like, but we've been telling our kids, don't do this, don't do that. And instead, what we need to be doing is stopping ourselves and reframing the language, right? Tell them what you actually want them to do. So even with small kids, avoid saying, don't run down the street. Instead, say, walk down the street. Or, you can skip down the street, or whatever the case may be, because you need to frame it positively by simply removing words like not and no from the vocabulary. One of the things I heard you say, Marcus, and then I guess we'll switch topics in a sec, is that, in our world, in this US that we're in, whenever we find a young person that's caught up in the justice system, we automatically blame it back on the parents. The mom wasn't doing this, the dad wasn't doing this, the family wasn't leaning in. But what I hear you saying is it didn't have anything to do with that. It was environmental. It was you were exposed to something. It looked good. It sounded good. You got some immediate results and you kept going, right? So what about the folks who are raising their children right now with Big Mike on the corner right now, but mom and dad, or just mom or just dad, or mom and dad, whoever the situation is, what do we say to them? Because they can't right now get out of that apartment. They can't right now move out of that neighborhood because there's a whole system in place, right? To keep folks in poverty, or to keep them in some negative situations. How do you address that? How does one address that?
It's an interesting question, right? I wish I had the red and blue pill, and I don't. So it's a full disclaimer. But what I also say is that I think that I've met amazing parents that mentor me from afar, right? You're one of them, right? When I think about like how Deuce was able to and I'm probably like just gonna go way personal on this one, but he texts me and be like, "Yo, I want to be able to detail your car. Are you in need of a detail this time?" Again. After the first one, like he's following up with previous customers, like just checking in on that, checking in that scratch, you know what I mean? Trying to find out. I'm trying to get some more bread above you. What you want to do? Right? Here's the thing that I love about that. The one thing I loved about that is that, like, we're so like the parents. We work because of our experiences, our natural life experiences. We believe that we can, right? We know that we're very capable of driving our children in directions because of our wide panoramic view of what the world looks like based off of our own experiences. And we want our children to be able to follow down this yellow brick road of success that we want to build out for them. But I think that one of the things that I'm really excited about in like meeting these newer parents that I'm being able to be mentored from are meeting parents that understand that these children don't have that same wide panoramic view of the world quite yet because their experiences are limited. And so because of their narrowly focused brain, they're very narrowly focused on the things that are important to them in the moment right now. Now, this is what it is. And the reality of it is that whether or not you live in the neighborhoods that you or I or my best friends or the ones I grew up live in, no matter what, all of our children have that remarkable spark that they will display to you in some way along this journey of childhood. Yeah. And I think that when we get to that place where we understand that we got to, again, continue to feed that thing, the narrowly focused kid that has the opportunity to be able to double down on the thing that they love, the things that their parents see that they love, their grandma and their uncles and their aunts or their cousins invest in them and saying that they love. I don't care where you live. Like those core people if you have a desire, if you're one of those parents that have a desire to want to bring that out of your children, that level of sacrifice in placing investment, and not just like cash investment, right? Because most of us don't even have it, right? But I'm talking about this time investment to say, wait a minute, that idea you had is brilliant. Yeah. I actually like it. I'm here to support it. Yeah. Here's some ways that I think that I can support it. Are there other ways that you think that I can support it? Right. Yeah. And allow them to travel that, because my narrowly focused brain wasn't waking up one day and saying, I want to learn how to go buy an 8-ball of crack from the corner and then cut it up and turn it to $125 into $350 worth of cut up nicks, dimes, and dubs. That wasn't my brain. My brain didn't know that. I was naturally wanting to play ball. I was selling candy at school. I wanted to be the smart kid. All of those things like that was celebrated. I wanted those things, right? But because we then shifted from, okay, wait a minute, you're reaching a space where you're gaining access to the world, and just to help mitigate what the possibilities are, let me just tell you what you ain't going to do. Yeah. And then it became like, all right, well, the disconnect became like this over time. And then the things that was interesting to me, she didn't even know she didn't know how to support that any longer, right? Yeah. And so one of the things I challenge myself to do is to ensure that as Marcus Jr. and as Aya continue to grow, to me, to be able to leverage the spark that they naturally have. Right now, Aya wants to be a YouTuber because she likes Ryan. And so we take a lot of videos on, and we haven't even published one of them, right? But we've like taken videos and we rewatch them. We talk about editing, and she's learning vocabulary where it's like editing. She's learning she's everything. She can be talking on the phone to somebody. She's like, if you want to know any more about this, then just make sure you subscribe to me. I'm like, really, Aya? This is a conversation with a person, right? But because we help foster that, and she knows she's being animated now, she allows her to be able to do what she absolutely loves. And I don't have as much of a fear for her deviating into something that I'm pulling her away from, just simply because I'm telling her don't go down that road.
Yeah, that's powerful. And thanks for bringing that up and bringing up Deuce. It reminds me of how we set certain foundations with them and allow them to talk and express what is real for them and what they actually want and need. And sometimes we miss the mark as parents. We're not perfect, right? Like sometimes there's going to be things that we don't see it and we just do the very best that we can. But what I hear you saying is, asking certain questions and trying to understand what your children's interests are, and then doing whatever you can to meet those interests with whatever resources you have. And the best resource you have is always your words. And we know that from the mental health perspective, because a child's adult self-talk is what they've heard as children. So when they become 15, 16, 20-year-old people and they're speaking to themselves and they're saying like, I can do this or I can't do this, that's not because they just randomly woke up one morning and thought that. It's because over years, those are the messages that they've been hearing. So if over years somebody is telling them, you're excellent, you're great, that was a mistake. Yes, let's sit down and figure out how we're going to fix that, right? You're still excellent. You're still great. You just made a mistake. Or saying to people, you're beautiful, right? And in this day and age, it's tough, not just for women. It's tough for men too, because men are getting influences by social media around body and body image and all of that kind of stuff. There's so much we could talk about because, this is the work that we do. We're going to talk about family, especially as a matter of coping and resiliency. But one of the cool things we're doing at Onyx is we have a partnership with a federal government entity, of which when their returning citizens come home, we get a touch point on them. So we are counseling them as soon as they're coming home, and awesome. It's beautiful. And you know what's crazy, Marcus? Even though it's a federal government agency, I wanted to pilot it so that they could see it. And I didn't even ask for money. I was like, I just want to touch them, right? I just want them to know that this is what we can do. This is how it is. Like, and not Onyx. I wanted the returning citizens to come home, because they're coming home to so many different environments, but at least 1 hour a week, they can just talk. And nobody's judging them, and nobody is saying you got to do this better or you got to do this different. It is just talk, sis, just talk, bro. Like just talk, especially because some of the experiences that people are having in jail and in prison, they can't even talk about when they get home, right? And I don't think people understand that there is a culture there that people can't understand here. And nobody wants to tell their story and everybody is crying, because then that doesn't give me the space to be myself and be my emotions, right? I had to keep it together when I was in here, and now I want a space to just let it all out. And if I got to always worry about how you responding to what I'm saying, then I could just never be free in my emotions. So we wanted to give them that. I want you to tell me a little bit about your mental health during that time. Maybe during those 8 years, maybe when you came back home, maybe at different points. At what point did you say, I need to be paying attention to this mental health thing?
Yeah. I started to know that I needed to pay attention to this mental health thing maybe a year or two ago.
Okay.
That's just being honest.
That's what's up.
Before then, I don't think that I paid enough attention to my own mental health to understand how it influenced the rest of my actions, how I showed up in environments and circles, how I communicated, the husband I am, the friend that I am, the brother, the son. I don't think that I paid attention to how that guided all of those until very, very recently. And it was actually one of my boys. His name is BJ. BJ was in one of my classes where we run the Flikshop School of Business. And BJ said he was talking to this one guy. He was talking about going to visit his counselor. And he was completely anti. And I'm like, I was indifferent. I'm sitting there listening to the conversation. Like, I'm indifferent. Like, I don't care if you do or you don't, right? Like, the same what has now been deemed as like the toxic masculinity, like it's baked inside of the fabric of Marcus. I'm like, dude, you ain't man up. You all right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you good. Like, and you did a bid. Like, if you did a bid, I feel like this is like, this is a cakewalk. You know what I mean? Right? This is how I'm showing up in real environments, right? This is real. And so BJ was like, he said to guy, he was like, yo, the problem with Black folks is that we are just now getting to the point where we understand the value of going to go see doctors for every other part of our body except for our brain, the one that drives everything that is connected to us. And when he said it, it was so like, the way that he articulated it was elementary in presentation, but it was so profound for me. I'm like, oh! And so that was a moment where I started to be a little bit more, careful about my perception of others. And then it allowed me to be able to self-identify with things that I would hear as a result of my openness to wanting to listen to the value of maintaining a strong and healthy brain.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the moment that transformed it. Going back to your original question about like, so that's like when I realized it. Now, because of it, it's giving an opportunity to be able to give me perspective, right? And I can look back in hindsight and see all of these trails that created the Marcus factors that created this, that masculine way of thinking and how to present yourself and how you must show up guarded, right? You must show up very, very guarded in everything that you do. And allowing yourself to be able to emote in any environment is clearly not the right decision to do, right? And this came as a result of me going to prison at such a very, very young age. And here's the interesting thing. The very first 2 years of my bid, I lived in denial. I literally believed that there was a judge or a prosecutor or somebody that was going to realize that they made a horrible mistake and they'll let me go. Like, I would call home and my mother would be like crying or whimpering. I'm like, yo, why are you bugging? You killed me with all this. Like, goodness well, they ain't going to keep me here through Christmas, Mom. Like, seriously, you think they really going to keep me here through Christmas? Like, right? Yeah. And then Christmas came and went. It was like, Mom, listen, I get you, but it's a new year now, right? Valentine's Day is coming. You know what I mean? Like, yo, I can't. I've already written the judge to let them know that I had a 2.75. I got to get up to the 3.0 in order to be able to play on the team. And so they got to. If I miss too many days in school, then I'm not going to be able to have the opportunity to bring my GPA back up. Yeah. So they know this. You know what I mean? I didn't think they're not going. I want to make the honor roll. They going to prevent me from making the honor roll, Mom? Seriously? Come on.
Right.
Last day of school came and went. Mom, listen, first day of school, it's my junior year. Now, I know that you want me to take this GED, but if I take this GED, Mom, it's going to preclude me from the opportunity to be able to go back to high school and go graduate, and I'm not going to be able to go to Duke. So I can't take my GED. My mom is like begging me on the phone, like, dude, because she doesn't want to like be like, look, you got to do them 8 years, bro.
Right.
She was like, yo, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Just get the GED. Just automatically just get your GED and let's see how it goes from there. for 2 years, it wasn't until my boy Danny B, I'm walking around a prison rec yard with him. I'm like, I'm about to turn 18. And I'm asking him, I'm like, yo, he's like in his 50s. And like prison, one of the only places where like one of your best friends could be in their mid 50s. And we walking around the rec yard together. And I'm like, yo, bro, how long you been here? Because like you jive like climbing up there. What you do? You know what I mean? Get here. You know what I mean? And he had looked at me. He's like, Marcus, I've been here for 31 years.
Wow.
Yo, my heart dropped to my toes. Palms immediately get sweaty. I'm like standing there like, what in the world do I do with this? I don't even know how to digest this. This frog in my throat right now is the proof that I now know that I will have to do all 8 of my years if they would keep him here for 31.
Yeah.
Trying to jump through the mental gymnastics that was happening at that moment of learning that for the next 6 years, after I've already spent my 16th to 17th birthday, but now I'm gonna have to spend my 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd birthdays all growing up in this prison cell. I'm the youngest person in this rec yard. Everybody got here got 60, 70, 80 years. And the beef just between Richmond and DC was enough for me to have to want to get out my bed every day to go get go either strap up or go get a knife or something to help protect myself when I go through the breezeway. This is my new life that I have to live with now.
Yeah.
I was so freaking angry. The level of anger and the depression, the hopelessness that started to bake down on that little 17, 18-year-old scrawny little kid in cell C12 was something that I look back on and just thank God that I came out of it with my right mind. Because I've seen a lot of people that come out of these cells and they just don't. The things that you witness, the things you experience, the things that you have to go through, the psychological makeup of the correctional officer and the person living in the cell, that relationship in and of itself, the dichotomy that you got to jump through. Like I came home, I was 23. I hadn't even had a real conversation with a woman for almost a decade of my life. I went through puberty in prison. You know what I mean? It's like all of those things. There was a gentle balance that I'm grateful that I still was able to come out of that with that in my right mind. But if I look back on those earlier years, my delusion literally saved my life at the time.
Wow.
Because if I wasn't delusional, I would have seeped into you're a failure. You're the biggest failure you've ever known. And I don't know if I would have been able to climb back out of that.
Yeah. So your mind was one of your protective factors. You just didn't know it at the time. Like you being delusional, being naive actually protected you, right? Like it's that whole thing that ignorance is bliss. And we talk about it and sometimes we demonize that or we judge people for that. But sometimes your situation is so tough that you need to just stay right there, because the other side of that is when people separate their minds, right? And then that's when we have dissociative identity disorder, where people box off their minds to the degrees where they create additional personalities within their same body. So in that case, I'm happy. I'm grateful that you were delusional, right? And I'm grateful that in the moment that it clicked, you had somebody that was there for you. It wasn't your mom, but it was your homeboy, right? And that is powerful. No matter what your situation is, because we are of people, we are people born from a person, created from a person, and designed to live around people. And so the fact that you had somebody with you served as one of your major protective factors in that moment. And I know that was a tough time for you. Tough is such a minor word, but I do truly enjoy seeing the pictures that you post on social media about your time there, because you're always with somebody, right? It's like somebody was next to you, somebody was helping you. And even though you were in this maximum security adult prison, you mentioned you were the youngest guy on the yard. Somebody was looking out. Maybe not always, maybe not all the time, you know what I mean? But there were some people that was there and saying, hey, I need to look out for this guy because he has a chance. And you talk about that too, how there's still many people, that are still, incarcerated. And I prefer the word incarcerated over locked up, because locked up seems as if you don't have any freedom, and you don't have freedom to the outside world all the time, but you still have some. And this is my naivety, right? So tell me, sis, if I'm sis, you wrong.
No, I'm going with you on this one. I'm going with you on this one.
Because there's still some sorts of freedom there, at least in your mind, right? Like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? You came home And that same ambition that you had before you went in, you turned it into something beautiful still. You were still free. Some people come home and they get this locked up and this locked down mentality, and they shut everything down. They shut down their dreams. They shut down their hopes. They shut down their character. They shut down what they can do. And I don't see it that way. Incarceration seems like a better access word to me, because lockdown seems like completely everything is done and everything doesn't have to be done. Jalila's texting me, telling me we almost running out of time, but I get so excited, Marcus. You know, I get excited.
This is good stuff.
And so Jalila, you might have to give me a few more minutes, because I'm too excited. I do want to talk to you a little bit about family, because you talk about family a lot, and I know that you have a couple things going on within Flikshop. I know you have the Flikshop School of Business. I want you to talk about that. That is awesome. Like, I get so excited. So you got the Flikshop School of Business. I know you got Flikshop Angels. I know you got your own family, your wife that has held you down, your family that's in this area, your cousins, your nieces, your aunts, your mom and sister, of course. But tell us about all of this beauty. Jalila, give me a few minutes, girl. Tell me about all of this beauty in your life.
You know, absolutely. One of the things, so Jalila, you got to work with us. I got to piggyback off something you say. I mean, this is amazing. I love this conversation here. I love where we're going with this. One of the things I think that, you know, that I heard from you just now, and I kind of sort of just want to piggyback on it, is the vision for people and how, like, they disconnect from themselves during some of the worst times, whether it's in prison, whether, you know, it was like a big health issue, you broke your arm or your leg or something happened and you were in the hospital for months, or even now, like, you know, like during what we're all going through the pandemic and trying to navigate through like different career opportunities or what your finances are going to look like, or like all of these desperate times. One of the things that I learned along the journey, and I say this to a lot of my little youngins that's coming out of these jails, is that whatever you believe, you're right. I'm so grateful that I understand now the power of attracting the things that to my life that I want to happen, just simply as a result that I think that they can happen.
Yeah.
Simply because I just believed that I was going to come home. I'm like, look, I don't know what kind of business. If you asked me back when I was at St. Brad's Correctional Center, and you're like, yo, what you going to do? You go home? I told him I wanted to own a whole bunch of hotels. I found out for the first time, I got a Virginia Pilot newspaper, and like they were building, some owner of some hotel brand was building a new Marriott like on the beach in Virginia Beach. And I read this article, and I'm like, wait a minute, time out, flag on the play. So you mean to tell me that there are actual people who own hotels? Now, we ain't talking about a room. They own a hotel building. Like, this is not, like, this is a person that, I don't even know if I understood the magnitude of a Marriott, but Marriott was a fictitious word for these hotels just miraculously just pop up, right?
Yeah.
And never in a million years, my brain connected, there was someone who actually owned this thing, and they were generating revenue every time somebody stayed there at night.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. It was so mind-blowing for me. I'm like, word, I'm doing that. I don't even know how to do it. I'm doing that. And people would ask me, like, yo, how you going to do this? How you going to get up? And so then I had to ask myself those questions about how am I going to generate enough money to buy a hotel? I don't even know who to call to buy a hotel. I don't know how much a hotel costs. I know I'm going to buy one, though.
Yeah.
And then I had to learn, I started to teach myself the stock market game. And then I started playing the stock market game and weaving people inside of, you know what I mean, in my housing unit. And so we was like betting on different stocks and using cigarettes to be able to bet. It was a whole thing. So the crazy thing about that was that what it did for me was it gave me, that Virginia Pilot paper gave me the permission to believe that I could actually do something that was bigger than my wildest dreams. Yeah. And that was a pivotal moment in my life that was piggybacking off of other people in moments. Jay-Z was another one. Jay-Z said, I could make 40 off a brick, but one rhyme could beat that. When I heard Jay-Z say that, I'm like,
yeah.
Right. You right, yo. Like, so wait a minute. There are these rich people out here, you know what I mean, that's on the cover of Condé Nast Traveler magazine. They ain't hustling bricks. So how they make money, right? How do they do these things? And it allowed me to expose myself to something more. And then I began to believe that I was capable enough to be able to deliver on the things that I started setting in my brain. And it took me down a very interesting path, and now I landed on Flikshop. Don't own a hotel and ain't close to buying a hotel, but believing that I could be the entrepreneur that can change things, that can educate my family and be able to help them introduce to them what FICO means and what Experian is and who TransUnion is. It allowed me, it gave me permission. And so I reached out to my little youngers, I tell them all the time, and I say this to the listeners today, whatever you believe, you're right. If you believe you can do it, if you believe when you come home, if you believe out of this pandemic, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do this thing, or oh my gosh, you're right. Hands down, you're right. If you believe you can, then you will. So I needed to say that because I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people miss when they start thinking about why the others, like the people that you see that you admire, the success stories, is simply they believe that they can do it and they go do it. And then the unrelenting stress of owning your own or even being an entrepreneur still is something that you have to learn how to have the magnitude for. But the first step is believing that you actually can do it. Going back to your question about the family and all that.
Wait, hold on, Marcus. Hold on. That is a total connection to mental health. There is actually a line of mental health called cognitive. It's a cognitive theory, cognitive orientation. That's the theory that I practice off of. And it is strictly based on your beliefs. It is strictly based on your thoughts. It is strictly based on where those strengths are and where we need to restructure those. And sometimes folks, remember, like I said a second ago, parents come in and sometimes they're saying the wrong thing to the child and not realizing that they're doing that they're causing this issue. But when we talked a few minutes ago, your mom was also telling you how much she believed in you. Your mom was also telling you how powerful you are. And so while you were in prison, you weren't thinking, you were thinking I could do it because I know I can. My mom has been telling me I can. I see the results that I can. I was on the basketball team. I did this. When folks come and they say, I don't want to go to therapy because I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about that. Sometimes people need to come to therapy just so we can talk about your thoughts. We don't have to do nothing else. Sometimes just tell me what you're thinking so I can help you with that. I can help you, right? And people are always talking about, Linnell, how did you do this? How did you do that? Just like you, I think I can. I literally walked out of, my daughter had a school meeting a few minutes ago. Sis was in here advocating for herself, Marcus. I was sitting here like, who is this? Okay. So you better, who is? And I'm texting her father on the side, like, that's my daughter. That's mine right there. And he texts me back like, okay, well, I'll pay attention in the meeting, But it is so powerful what we think. But I literally walked out of the office and I said to myself, a manifestation. By this time next year, I want to do this. Based off of a conversation that I had with Alyssa. I guarantee you I'm going to do it because I believe it, because manifestation, because this is my house. I grew up in a crazy environment. My mom was addicted to drugs. My father wasn't there in the beginning. It was crazy. So when people look at me now, they're like, oh, you come from this silver spoon. Sis, I believed from the very beginning that I could have this life, right? I believed it and I did the very best that I could for it. Before you tell us about just your businesses, the chat is moving. So let me answer some of these chats and then we can get into it. So Rashida Spence Ingram, hello, honey, said mental gymnastics is an understatement. I remember when I worked with juveniles in Philadelphia County Prison, sessions with my boys to prepare them for life upstate for life was horrific. So preparing them for life was horrific. And then Victoria, you remember Victoria. She said, Marcus, Mr. Flikshop himself. And then Corinne, thank you for this conversation. It's real, it's needed. And Ashley Stevens, hey, Ash, said a sermon. They believed they could, so they did. And guess who just commented? Torrance. He put the fist up. Hey, big bro. Our brother Torrance. Okay. Before Jalila send me a private message like, Dr. Plummer, let's go ahead and talk about what you are doing with Flikshop and all the things that makes life beautiful and that's helping people.
No, thank you. So we're very intentional about wanting to create the same kind of relationships and pathways to communication that I had with my mom when I was in prison. I believe that, love and accountability and all of the empathy and buckets of emotions that we want to be able to give to our family members and friends that are there needs to be flowed in these cells. But the reality of it is that there's no internet inside these cells. There's no easy texting or emailing or social media. And so we wanted to be able to create a pathway to ensure that could still happen. And we're doing it with our mobile app that I described before. Our users are able to take a picture, ask some quick text. Hey, what's up, bro? I miss you. Keep your head up, press in, put their phone back down, get back to life but we're going to take that picture and text, print it on a real tangible postcard, send it to any person, any prison. One of the things I get most excited about as a result of us building what we're building is meeting the folks that say, you know what, I understand how important, it is to be empathetic. And I understand how important it is to be able to be a part of this community that helps provide safe and pathways filled with potential success for these people that are sitting in cells and they want to contribute, but they don't know anyone that's incarcerated currently. And so we built the Flikshop Angels product to be able to help solve for that, to allow for our community members to band together with us and purchase Flikshop credits that we give to children with incarcerated parents. We don't want the barrier of that family dynamic to them, to completely be eroded just simply because of that one issue of incarceration. And so we're grateful for each one of our Flikshop Angels. So if you become a Flikshop Angel, thank you so much. You can find out more about that at flikshopangels.com. I'm super pumped about building these pathways of empathy. And this was actually an idea that came from my amazing wife as a result of a partnership we did with John Legend, of all people. Right? How dope was that? But John was able to buy a bunch of credits, and then we gave them to a bunch of families, and it was incredible. And we saw the impact of that. We saw families start to stay together in interesting and meaningful ways, and something I'm very, very proud of. So shout out to my amazing wife, Andrea, for being my backbone and along this journey, even when I'm like the worst, because I'm like trying to balance a husband and CEO and father at the same time.
For sure. That's part of the work that we're doing with the families that are returning home, because that attachment could be severely damaged with incarceration, because people can't stay in contact. And when they have their children, they can't always watch them grow. And we talked about that disconnection a little bit ago. So it is extremely powerful that you're bringing it on the tech side, right? And that's why I'm so excited to always see the things that you're doing, because it's inspiring. It's inspiring. And I don't think people think about it. They think about it logically, but they don't think about what it means for generations, right? If one mother is incarcerated and her children are home, it doesn't just affect that mother and her child. It affects who that child will be as a parent and how they parent their child. And it affects who that child will be and how they parent their child. And it'll affect relationships with their intimate partners, relationships with their friends, their different quality of life. So keeping families connected, especially during incarceration, is not just a personal one-person situation. It is a generation thing that we can that we can forecast, right? And so I love this idea of Flikshop Angels. Of course, I'm about to go on the website right now and see what I can do to help, because I'm all about that. Tell me a few minutes about the Flikshop School of Business.
Well, the Flikshop School of Business was designed simply because we wanted to be able to help educate people that are coming in these cells, and they wanted to do something when they came home. Didn't know what they wanted to do, right? Yeah. So, and I believe that it's very hard to be what you can't see. If you haven't had someone that's in front of you to say, hey, look, I've come home from prison, I've done this time, I get it, I was that dude on the block too, right? But this is how I was able to come home and do it. And not like saying, come home and be successful, you can do it, go get a job, right? Here are the real meaningful steps. Like literally step one, I did this. I came home, I opened up a bank account at my mom's credit union, and then I deposited $100 in that bank account. I took that $100, I took it to Bank of America and deposited $100 in that Bank of America account. I got a secure credit card from Bank of America to secure that $100. I took that $100 and paid back the credit union. And I kept doing that over and over and over until I was able to build up my credit. I was able to build up credit. I had $1,000 of unsecured credit with a very high credit score. By the time I got my first job and I had income, it allowed me to be able to go out and go buy my first property. I bought an investment property in Baltimore, and these are the steps I did to take that. Blah, 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 blah. And see, rattling off those real live steps, one, it says what the possibilities are. Yeah. Two, it allows the person at the end of that recipient of the conversation to be like, So I didn't want to do anything like that, but I had an idea for an ice cream truck. And Marcus, blah, blah, blah. And so what we did was we created the Flikshop School of Business to give that space for people that are sitting inside of these cells right now to be able to engage directly with people that have been through it and have had some level of success after prison. That we go back into these prisons and we teach these classes. So far, we taught classes in DC, Maryland, New York at Rikers, in a prison in Connecticut. And we're excited about what we're growing to become with the Flikshop School of Business, because I believe that it's not really a talent issue, right? I'm not a unicorn. I'm not an anomaly, right? Like it really is a resource and social capital issue. And if I do my job of going in these prisons and clicking that light switch for them, that's all I got to do is just illuminate. Once I illuminate, there's the few that want to be able to come out and do something meaningful, and we want to help them, give them the opportunities. Most times, opportunities like the ones that I did not have. I feel grateful that I'm blessed to be able to be in a position to do that.
So hold on. You were in prison and you read an article about this man buying some Marriott hotels. That's what made your vision. And now you're going around, literally, you are the man, the Marriott man. You are going around inspiring people. You are the one that's telling people, this is possible. You can do this. Look at me. That's what you're telling me?
So grateful. I'm so grateful. Like, so grateful. It's such a blessing. I feel like I can't believe this is my life. I'm being straight up honest. Like, I'm living on a cloud right now. I can't believe that this is my life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then be able to dap up folks that sit, you know what I mean? Like, I get a badge when I go in there, like, you know, especially it's like, yo, make sure I get that badge when I come up, when I pop the doors. I'm coming about it this time. Don't play with me. I'm able to go back in and I'm able to dap dudes up on the rec yard and they were like, word, oh, wait a minute. So you the dude who owned the company that with my girlfriend be sending me those postcards?
Yes.
Stop playing. And we're able to have real conversations. And I'm grateful for those times where I'm able to illuminate for a lot of those men and women.
Yeah, you're able to, they can look at you and see it as tangible, Marcus. They see it. They see you. They see it. I love it so much. I love it so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Anything that you were like, yo, I'm going to talk to Linnell. I want to make sure I say boom, 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 and yada, yada, yada. Because I know I was talking, I had all the questions.
Nah, you good. It was such a great opportunity to be able to talk, one, with a friend, but a woman who I admire so much. Is so brilliant. I'm so grateful for what you're doing in the community. And thank you for breaking down so many barriers. I mean, I'm speaking personally for myself and the people that directly connected to me, that look like me, that need a Linnell in their life. But I'm grateful to be able to point to a woman who does it and you give space to not feel crazy for being the first time where you hear that therapy can benefit us all. And I'm grateful you being one of the faces that I'm able to leverage in my community for that.
Yeah, I love you, Marcus. You are amazing. So I want to make sure that everybody has Marcus's information. So hopefully we can get that in the chat real soon for the website with Flikshop, and also the Flikshop Angel and Marcus's IG for Flikshop as well. And then make sure you go to your app stores and you look for Flikshop. It is as simple as he said. I know because I've tried it. So you literally take a picture and then you connect it to the app and then it goes out. It's like sending a text, y'all. Like, it is so simple. But guess what it means for the person who's receiving it? It means everything. When they're going through some of these worst moments, some of these hard days, and they wish they could talk to somebody, but they get this postcard, it means everything. And again, I haven't received the postcard, but I've sent them out. And when I get to talk to my folks after they get the card and the level of gratitude that they have. And for us, it's simple. It's simple, but it means the world to them. And it gives them that hope and it gives them that inspiration. And it lets them know that when they come home, it's going to be okay. That you were taking care of them when they were there. And you're going to be able to, have their back when they come home too. So keep giving inspiration through simple things like sending them a postcard, sending them a picture, let them know what's happening so they feel connected, so they don't feel like they miss so much, because sometimes that's real hard. Marcus, I love you. One of the major things that you said is about the power of belief. We have to believe. That is what manifestation is. We have to know who we are and what we're capable of. And when we doubt ourselves, that's only a sign that we could go ahead and check in with somebody so we could restructure that thought a little bit. We are not our negative things. We are not our mistakes. We are beauty. We were created by God. We were chosen to be here by our ancestors. This is our time. And even if we make some mistakes, and we all do, right? When we make those mistakes, we are not defined by our mistakes. We are defined by our power and by our beauty and by our essence and what God put in us and why he chose us to be here at this time. So thank you, Marcus, for being with us today, for being with me. I love you so much. I'm about to click off and go right to Flikshop Angels and see what I could do. All right?
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
For sure. All right, I'll talk to you later, homeboy.
All right, see you guys.
See